The wait is over, it is finally here.
The A7V.
The A7V.
The Sony A7V.
That's right, the Sony A7V has arrived, and no sooner had the announcement concluded than the controversy began.
It doesn't have Opengate.
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 Opengate. Opengate. Damn it, Sony.
For those of you who don't know what Opengate video recording is, it allows you to record video with your entire sensor.
Opengate set the camera internet world on fire.
Run that back. Say that again louder for the people in the back.
For the Sony A7V to make sense, you have to pretend every other camera didn't get released this year?
Because it doesn't do 6K video, it doesn't do Opengate, it doesn't have internal RAW video.
Now, I'm not here to tell you whether Opengate matters to you and your workflow. That's entirely up to you. But what I am going to do is cover something that nobody else appears to be doing. Today, I'm breaking down the real numbers of what it takes to get Opengate by ditching your Sony gear. That's right, not just the body. We seem to gloss over this all the time. This is a change of an entire ecosystem. You're talking about lenses, batteries, memory cards, cages, all sorts of other accessories. So to make this easily digestible, I have covered this in 3 different scenarios. We'll start with the beginner, somebody that has a single camera body, a few generations old, and a trio of third-party lenses because Sony supports third-party lenses. Then we'll go to the intermediate shooter who has a better body and additional lenses beyond that trio, including some high-level primes. And then we'll go to the full professional shooter who has only the tippy-top best of the best lenses with each system. Now, our beginner has got a Sony A7 III body, a couple generations old, came out in 2018, and they're ready for an upgrade. They also have the original Generation 1 Tamron Trio. I own these lenses personally. This is where I started, and I think it's where a lot of people do, so it's perfect for our beginner. That includes the 17-28, the 28-75, and the 70-180 f2.8 lenses. Quick disclaimer on pricing, I pulled from 3 different sources. For all things new, I pulled from B&H Photo. I used their current holiday pricing, so the best possible scenario rather than MSRP. For used, I have a combination of KEH, B&H Photo, and eBay to find where prices generally were for each one of these pieces of gear. Now, I don't shoot Canon and I don't shoot Lumix, so if you are a shooter of either one of those systems and I get something wrong, please let me know. Okay, disclaimer done. Let's get back to our beginner. What can they reasonably expect on the used market to get for their A7 III and the Tamron Trio? Our beginner rakes in a cool $2,750. But now this beginner is into Canon. The R6 Mark III looks really exciting, so that's the direction they're gonna go. And then they're gonna pick up 3 lenses to replace the Tamron Trio. Canon has 2 different lines apparently. The STM lenses, which are a step motor lens, a little bit older, a little bit more cost effective. And then they have their L lenses, which are the higher end versions for the RF mount. We're gonna go with STM lenses here to be as apples to apples. But I warn you, the 70-200 lens here, there isn't an STM option. And because Canon doesn't offer third-party lenses for autofocus lenses, I have to just use the L version, which is very expensive. So between the 16-28 and 28-70 f2.8 STM lenses, as well as the 70-200 L lens, that puts the Canon total at $7,400. Tack in a quick calculation for the accessories, and our beginner user can expect to spend $4,800 to switch to Canon. I hear you saying already, but what about the used version of this? Don't worry, I got you. If we look at the used market, it puts our beginner's cost at still nearly $4,200 out of pocket when you add in the accessories. That is an extremely expensive switching cost for somebody coming from an A7 III and the Tamron Trio. You could basically buy all your gear again brand new for the same exact cost as doing something like this. But what's it look like through Lumix? Lumix is less expensive. Well, sort of. The S1 Mark II is actually more expensive, and that is the full frame equivalent with Opengate over on the Lumix side. It retails at nearly $3,200. Got one other disclaimer here. Over on the Panasonic side, there are a couple of lenses that they just flat out don't appear to make. And so I'm gonna have to use the Sigma equivalent of those instead. So we start with the S1 Mark II for the body. We add in the Sigma 16-28, the Lumix S 24-60, and the Sigma 70-200. All of those are f2.8 lenses. That brings our Lumix total to $6,650. And when you add in accessories, that takes us to just over $4,000 out of pocket for our Sony user to switch. But on the Lumix side, you do get a pretty good break when it comes to used lenses. So we actually take that total down, and that saves $375 for our user, bringing our beginner's cost down to $3,650. No matter how you slice it, our beginner moving into this is going to have a huge output, or they're going to have to make some very tough decisions about the lenses they actually need to move over here in an effort to cut costs. Let's move on to the intermediate shooter. I put myself in that category, and let's tack on some additional lenses. They've already upgraded, or they started with an A7 IV, so a little bit further down the line. Let's look at the lenses I have. In addition to the original Tamron Generation 1 trio, which I still have, I tacked on a 24-105 f4. This is an OSS lens from Sony that's great for video. And then I also started dabbling in primes. I have a 35mm f1.4 G Master and a 85mm f1.8 G lens. This is a really good kit, and I think is representative of somebody in an intermediate. What can our Sony shooter expect to get on the used market? You can expect roughly $6,245. Starting with quite a bit more. But unfortunately, if you want to move to Canon, the cost just keeps climbing. To add in the 24-105 f4 L lens, the 35mm f1.4 L lens, and the 85mm f1.4 L lens, you're looking at a total of $11,900 for Canon. On the used market, that only brings us down to $10,750. So what can our intermediate shooter expect with them? Nearly $7,200 brand new and over $6,000 used. But this is where Lumix starts to catch up a little bit, because some of the Lumix and Sigma glass is actually a lot slower, and it's already fairly cost effective. So when you start tacking these in, this is where it gets pretty compelling. So we start with our same kit, but we add on the 24-105 f4. We add on the 35mm f1.8 and the Sigma 85mm f1.4. That's the DGDN art lens. Excellent quality. And that Lumix kit comes to $10,200 new or $8,800 used. That puts the out-of-pocket at over $4,000 new and over $2,500 used. We're getting very compelling if you do a lot more video than you do photo. So now we're talking about the professional. This is somebody that has got G Master glass as far as the eye can see. We have moved away from the third-party stuff, and it's first-party all the way. So we're going to retain the first-party glass of the 35mm, the 85mm, and the 24-105, and we're going to replace the Tamron trio to start with. Let's jump into it. So we go to the 16-35 G Master version 2, tack in the 24-70 G Master f2. That is a newer lens, but fantastic. The 70-200 f2.8 G Master version 2, and then we add in some primes, the 24mm f1.4, the 50mm f1.2, and the newest 100mm f2.8 G Master. Add that all up, and our professional's full kit comes in at nearly $20,100. That's quite the output, but I don't think you'll be shocked to see that Canon is even more expensive than that. Let's jump into the numbers. So for not one, but two R6 Mark III bodies, the 15-35 f2.8 L lens, the 28-70 f2 L lens, 70-200 f2.8 L lens. We add in the 24mm f1.4, the 50mm f1.2. We upgrade the 85mm f1.2, and we add in the 100mm f2.8 macro. So overall, for a brand new Canon kit, you are looking at a cool $26,000 for all of that glass. Used, you can save a little bit, coming in at just over $22,000. So for new, this puts you over $6,100 out of pocket, and for used, over $2,600 out of pocket. Either way, Canon remains the most expensive system to move to for getting Opengate of this comparison. Things do start to get a little weird here with the comparison on the Lumix side, however, because for whatever reason, Panasonic doesn't have a ton of really fast glass. And even in the third-party side, the glass just is not as fast as Sony and Canon. So take this with a grain of salt, because there are definitely some trade-offs when we get into this side. Let's jump into the numbers. So two S1 bodies, and we move over to the Pro line of Lumix lenses. So the S Pro 24-70 f2.8, the S Pro 70-200 f2.8, add in the 24mm f1.8, the S Pro 50mm 1.4, and we add in the 100mm f2.8 macro. All said and done, that kit comes in at nearly $21,000. Because of some of these lenses, the used end, however, is very compelling. Used, this kit comes out to $16,700. So this means for our user to switch over to Lumix, it's going to cost them $1,300 to do it new. But if they do it used, they can save $2,600 and keep that in their pocket. So what have they lost? The glass is nowhere near as fast as it is on Sony, and they're moving away from some of the best optics in the business right now, and certainly some of the only f2 zooms that I'm even aware of. I think for the vast majority of beginner shooters, this is just completely out of reach. And if it were my money, I would just buy the A7V and stay in the Sony ecosystem. Deal with the fact that you don't have Opengate to get all these other incredible features. For an intermediate shooter just like me, it becomes a little bit more attainable. For our intermediate shooter, it's likely that they might be making some money off of their photography or videography at this point. That softens the blow of this somewhat and makes it more of like a business expense. So even going out and buying something brand new at the lowest end doesn't necessarily sting as much as it does for our beginner who's almost certainly not making a dime off of this, and it is a hobby. Opengate is cool, and the additional video features on the R6 III are incredible. That does not change my opinion whatsoever. That can't possibly be worth the multi-$1,000 investment unless you know that your work is going to pay it off. And for our pro, if you want to go to Canon, you are going to pay for the privilege, my friend. On the Lumix side, there are a lot of trade-offs, but you do end up with some money in your pocket. So if you're a very video-centric shooter and that's the thing that you use the most, this might make sense for you. Potentially put some money away and get going. Now I realize on the other end of this camera, you might be going, listen, man, that's not my scenario. That's not my exact thing. So I am going to do you a favor and let you run whatever scenario you want. I'm going to give you for free my spreadsheet that I use to do all the calculations on this and include all of the cameras, all of the lenses, all the accessories, the sale price, the new price, and the used price, and you can fiddle to your heart's content to see what it would cost you to switch in your particular scenario. Have a lens on here that's not included in mine? Go hop on B&H, KEH, and eBay and add your own prices in here and tack that on. I'll make it as straightforward as possible, so all you really need to do is fill out the quantity of things that you want, the quantity of things that you have, and off to the races you go. This is your cost to switch. So for anybody that is claiming that it is not that big of a deal to switch systems, I've got news for you. It absolutely is. And this is how camera companies are going to lock you into their ecosystem and lock you in as a customer. I'm going to have a whole separate review on the A7V here when I get my hands on one. Suffice to say, I think there's some really cool stuff in the A7V. And if you are a photographer primarily and you dabble in video, you are eating well. Just go get the A7V. It's incredible. And if you're on a budget wondering, man, I can't quite reach to get the A7V, look back at the A7 IV if you don't own one. That's also an incredible camera. And I know we all get FOMO, but before you decide to make any rash decisions, I want you to go and watch my video right here on 10 questions that you should ask yourself before you buy a new camera. I'll catch you on the next one.